Welcome to AminAcademy.com. Let us discuss about Ottoman Empire, the decentralization and traditional reforms. The process of decentralization and decline was as complicated as was the structure affected. Much was indeed internal within the Ottoman body politics itself, but also at work were conditions and developments outside the empire, outside the ability of even the ablest sultans and ministers and most efficient bureaucrats to control or remedy. The increasing power of the nation states of Europe, whose political, economic, military, and cultural advances in particular left them far stronger than what the great 15th and 16th century sultans had faced, thus requiring the empire not only the regain not only to regain what it had but advance the develop if it was not to fall further behind. Analysts Analysis of the decline must proceed on different levels. One must remember that the process was gradual one, in which seeds of decay crept into the Ottoman body, politics, and society over many centuries. That because of the basic strength of the system, and in particular the internal structure of Middle Eastern society, the trend was not noticeable within and for long years Europe failed to recognize the decline or attempt to take advantage of it. Thus the empire was able to survive for longer than might otherwise have been the case. Ottoman decline, in fact, was not very apparent to Europe until well into the 17th century, leaving the sultans with a respite that could have been used to remedy the decay, but that instead lulled them into a false sense of confidence, depriving them of the stimulus to reform until it was indeed too late. Now we'll further discuss about decentralization of Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire experienced several periods of decentralization and reforms, including the Old Regime. This period was marked by political and economic reforms that increased the influence of provincial figures. The sale of lifetime tax forms in 1695 was a notable reform that allowed provincial figures to gain more influences. The Tanzimat reforms. These reforms in the 1800s sought more democratization. They included an educational plan that provided free and compulsory primary education, the development of state educational system, the Nizami Sidid new order. This reform was begun by Sultan Selim III. The Ottoman Empire's political structure was despotic for most of its history, within the Sultan ruling from Istanbul and absolute authority. However, the empire's decentralization and reforms were short lived and unable to address the underlying causes of the empire's decline. The reforms were only able to address the immediate results of decay, not the underlying cause, which was the monopoly of the ruling class. The reforms did not understand that the Ottoman Empire faced a more powerful Europe than its past. The empire's fragile state left it unable to withstand defeat in World War One. Now, further subdivisions, the political and military factors of decline. The Ottoman Empire decline was caused by a number of factors, including centralized bureaucracy. The empire struggled to maintain a centralized administrative structure and bloated bureaucracy. Localized interests, national movement, and other localized interests rose across the empire. Corruption and disorders. Corruption and nepotism took hold at all levels of administration. Lack of sultanic power. The sultans became less able to powerful and withdrew from public affairs. Rise of the Grand Vizier. The Grand Vizier's authority grew and he became second only to the Sultan in authority and revenue. Loss of European territory. The empire lost most of its remaining European territory in the Balkan Wars in 1912 to 13. The World War One. The Ottoman Empire sided with Germany in World War One and was defeated and patronized after the war. Other factors of the contribution to the empire's decline include the Russo-Turkish Wars, the wars with the Austria and Poland, the occupation of Syria and Lebanon by Muhammad Ali and his son Ibrahim in 1830, the arrival of Christian, mostly American Protestant missions, the Congress of Berlin, which returned territories to the Ottoman Empire from Bulgaria. Social and economic factors. The Ottoman Empire declined for many reasons, including economic difficulties. The empire's economy was disrupted by trade. European powers began trading with East Asia and East Indies by sea, which reduced the empire's revenues. Inflation. The influx of precious metals from the America to Europe caused inflation. Imbalance of trade. The empire's trade with the West became increasingly imbalanced, forming. The empire's economy remained dependent on farming while Europe industrialized. Central government weakness. The central government weakened and peasants joined rebel bands. Nationalist movement. The nationalist movement rose across the empire. Partisan agreement. After the empire's defeat in World War One, the Allied powers partitioned the empire into numerous territories. Other factors that contributed to the empire's decline include the empire's response to declining revenues, which included increasing taxes and confiscations. The empire debt, which grew to enormous levels by the mid 19th century. The empire's inability to produce heavy weaponry, munitions, and iron and steel for World War One. The empire's inability to maintain a centralized administrative structure. Offspring and revolts. There are so much revolts against the central of Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire experienced many revolts and offsprings included Janissary revolts. These included the Bukak Tipi rebellion in 1446, the Sahkulu rebellion in 1511, the Yanibalchi offspring in 1525, the Calendar Celebi rebellion in 1527, and the Patrona Halil revolt in 1730. Jilali revolts. The first revolt occurred in 1519, led by Silal, the Shiti preacher. The Shiti preacher. Other major revolts occurred in those years. Anti-Ottoman revolts in 1567 to 1572. These revolts were a series of conflict between the Ottoman Empire and Albanian, Greek, and other rebels. Peasant revolts. These included the Vidin revolts from 1849 to 1850, the Canik conflict from 1840 to 1860s, and the Kisrawan Peasant Republic from 1858 to 1861. Other revolts. These included the Bosnian offspring from 1831 to 1832, the Sasan Rebellion in 1894, the Mesopotamia offspring in 1906, the Euphrates Rebellion in 1913, and the offspring of Karbala in 1915. So far, we discussed about the reforms and about the Ottoman empires. decentralization and traditional forms in more regions like decline of regions in that population increases. Basic changes were taking place in Ottoman population as well as the financial and economic structure of the empire. The population of the empire almost doubled during the 16th century, along at the same time that similar population increases were occurring in lands bordering and Mediterranean. The Ottoman had, of course, experienced substantial population increases throughout their history from the influx of Turkmen tribesmen into Anatolia in flight from the conquering armies coming from Central Asia. But such immigrants were usually sent out once again as gazis or raiders, although the process of mass deportation has happened. They were installed as settlers in the areas of southeastern Europe or the islands of the Aegean and the Mediterranean that were especially difficult to subdue. There were more economic disruptions. At the same time, the empire began to experience major internal problems resulting from international developments in trade, industry, and finance. The economic system of the Ottoman was based on the idea of imperial self sufficiency. The powerful centralized structure developed in the 14th century enabled the sultans to develop the different areas of the empire to complement each other and to follow policies that were quite favorable to the prosperity of all. So far, we discussed shortly about Ottoman decentralization. We have done. Please subscribe our YouTube channel.